Welcome back, Hooligans. We are here once again, for our second try review of 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Just a couple technical difficulties, no big deal. You know, working all the kinks out. It'll be all right. My name is Joe. I am served once again by my co-host Ryan, and we're gonna try and make it as good as we thought the last one was. But I kind of feel like we're both in the mood to. We're just gonna get through this one.
Yeah.
So now. Number one, I'm the one who recommended this movie. I recommended it as a nostalgia pick. Was a big fan of it with my dad, and he's no longer here, so I think of it or see it through maybe some rose-colored glasses a little bit. But for the most part, it is just sit down, throw some popcorn in your face, and enjoy this movie that is a whole lot of movie in this one movie.
Yeah. It's very different. I hadn't seen it before. I don't think I've heard of it before, or if I had, I probably assumed what I assumed when you recommended it this time, which was it's something about Elvis. I'm not really interested. I've seen a lot of stuff from movies about, like, Dolly Parton, and I remember the Bobby Darin movie with Kevin Spacey from a couple years ago, and I was just not interested. But I also didn't look anything up. I just made my assumption and went with it.
Yeah, it's fair. Now there is Elvis. Elvis is involved in this movie, not the king himself, but it's a heist movie that takes place in Vegas in a casino during an Elvis convention. I thought the idea for what they did, how they attempted this heist, was a unique one. All of them dressing up as Elvis impersonators, surrounded by lots of other Elvis impersonators to go and try and pull off a heist, which was a unique idea. It came out in the same year as Ocean's 13, and whereas that was a very refined, slick, stylized kind of movie, this was almost all over the place. There's so much in it. There's action, comedy, romance, some pathos, some drama. There's a lot to it. I liked a lot of the characters who were in it. You got some big names: Kevin Costner, Kurt Russell, Kevin Bacon, John Lovitz. Bacon. I'm sorry, not Kevin Bacon. The other one, Christian Slater. That's my bad.
You get them confused?
Yeah, sometimes. I always did for some reason. Yes, I did. So yeah, that one, Christian Slater's in it. The man, John Lovitz, he's great. But Courtney Cox, Monica from Friends. This was the first thing I ever saw her in that wasn't Friends. She might have been in something else, other movies or something, but it was the height of that time, her being in that show, and I hadn't really seen her, as anything but Monica.
And Monica's a very specific kind of character. She's really, really different in this. Mm-hmm. She's much more worldly, a little less refined.
Little less refined. Less. She's kind of a mom who gives no Fs. None.
Her F's have been stolen by the kid and hidden in the attic with everything else.
With that little ferret. She's like, I didn't think about her as a person like this up until this movie, but she was kind of banging. Like, she was okay. Good job, Monica. All right, like, well done, ma'am. Like, you asked me before do you think she was a body double? Like, I didn't think so. If they did it, well done. But man, it looked good in this movie. Like, I was surprised when I first saw it. Like, oh, okay.
Well, they were the highest paid actors in the world at the height of Friends. So that was why I thought that, like, why are they going to pay her so much for a scene of, like, her back in bed or something like that?
Yeah, maybe.
So, okay, I'll just start off with my thoughts.
Sure.
So when we first got into it, I didn't really like it. Like, I wasn't sure what I was in for, but I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I did not really, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling the very late 90s, early 2000s vibe.
And it was very late 90s, early 2000s. It came out in 2001, but it still had that late 90s feel, the music.
Yeah, the vibe and the music and the CG. There's this weird metaphorical fight between a couple of scorpions that they've used to foreshadow the conflict because they even overlay actors' names onto them as they're fighting. Like, in a very on-the-nose kind of way. Which is interesting because so much of the movie is actually kind of subtle. I think. For what it is, it's not as in-your-face as it could have been. It makes some clever decisions. There are some characters that make some, I don't know. they make complex choices. You know, Kevin Costner as Murph, who is the ultimate antagonist of the movie, really plays his villain role well. He's very down to business the whole time, and when things go wrong, he is like a machine.
Mm-hmm.
He just constantly and relentlessly pursues his goal, and he knows how to get to the people around him. And, you know, particularly with the scene with the money launderer later in the movie, he knows exactly how to mess with that guy. He knows exactly how to get what he wants with virtually no effort.
Not really.
And even later on, he's able to use Courtney Cox and the kid to get what he wants because he knows that's his best play. Like, just going head on at something is not always his method, which is clever. I like that it's not just, oh no, here's the guy, we got to get away from the guy. Like, he's doing other things, he's drawing you to him, stuff like that. But then it does things that are really strange. So I don't really want to do any, like, spoiler-free review for a movie that's 19 years old. Or
no, yeah, it's not going to be.
I guess.
There's going to be some spoilers in this. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't seen this movie. Watch it. If you don't want to hear spoilers, watch it before we totally get into this, because I think we can both recommend right now. It's a watch. It's something that, I mean, if you like an action, you know, heist, and it does have that 90s vibe, but it's fun. I think it's fun to sit down, throw some popcorn in your face, and I enjoy it every time I watch it.
It is. It wound up being a lot more fun than I expected it to be, especially once I got past the initial scene with the CG and just, yeah. A lot of the strangeness is front-loaded right there at the beginning. Once you get past it, maybe the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, like the
kind of
intro to
down.
Vegas scene, the way they did it, unlike just the big wide shot of Vegas, of the Strip. They had a very unique way of throwing it at you. It was very Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas kind of style. Flashy lights, the way the camera work was done, the music that was with it. I liked a lot of it. I liked how that was portrayed. Maybe because I liked it a lot back then when they did it, more so than how much I just like it if I had seen it for the first time now. But it's good.
Yeah. So watch it if you have access to it. You know, it's not life-changing, but it is a fun movie. If you're looking for something fun to watch because you're stuck in quarantine, go for it.
Absolutely. Library. Get stuff from the library, because I don't know if it's on any streaming services, but the library does that too, so don't forget about them. And you don't get a lot of movies where Kevin Costner plays the bad guy, and he was one of my favorite parts about the whole movie.
He's a good bad guy.
For the first time I watched it, till still right now, he is a great bad guy, and I think you could tell in this movie he had fun playing the bad guy.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying, they play a lot of it in a clever way. The way he gets access to the money, the way he lures in Mike, Kurt Russell's character, is interesting. He understands him. He's even screwing with him psychologically at one point where they're both arrested and they're together. But then the initial heist, which, like we were talking about, was at an Elvis convention in a casino. They're dressed up as Elvises, which is a great idea. You blend into everything. You're naturally a little bit disguised because you're wearing a wig or hair coloring and glasses and whatever else. You know, an outfit that kind of obscures your body type. And it should have been like the beginning of The Dark Knight, where they bust in and they wind up using the school bus to get away into a line of school buses. So it's difficult to trace which one it was. Like, that's how their getaway should have been. You know, they should have been leaving with them. Or like in Assassin's Creed, where you can blend into a crowd. Like, you find a group of people that look kind of like you blend into the middle of them, the guards have trouble finding you. It's the same sort of concept. It's used in a lot of movies and a lot of games. And in this one, it could have worked, except for the fact that they were all carrying, like, serious firepower with them in plain view.
Yeah, not like they were just walking with a pistol in their hand. Like, at one point, Christian Slater's character turns around because
like
Murph asks him, "Hey, are we being followed?" He turns around, full view of these guards who are obviously following these guys.
Yeah, like 10 feet behind them.
And he's carrying an M16. Like, just, oh, yeah, I guess I have this. That was... I don't know whether or not I like that decision versus the idea that you just came up with or brought into our faces.
Yeah, I mean, they said that their total take was like $3.2 million.
Yeah, something like that.
They could have just left everything. Right? They came in with guitar cases and things like that had their weapons in their equipment. Right. They could have just dumped all the weapons in anywhere. In the elevator that they were using that Mike was messing with to stop it from, going anywhere while they were doing what they were doing. And then they could have just stuck the money in those cases and walked out and looked pretty inconspicuous. But they didn't. Because they needed that first scene to happen. They needed that big fight scene where you lose one of the guys and it sets off this whole thing and shows how weird and inflexible Kevin Costner's character is and sets that whole conflict into motion. Yeah,
it was unlike a lot of heist movies or some heist movies. I know there are ones that come into play where plenty of gunfire, plenty of conflict, that kind of thing, versus in Ocean's 11 where they want it as under the radar as possible. They don't want anybody to know that they were in and out until they are long gone out of the scene. Mm-hmm. But the thought of them last standing at this last stand as a first stand, and this is one of the very first things that happened in the movie, and as you said, to set it all off, in this, part of the casino, they're waiting on Michael, played by Kurt Russell, who, a little surprising that he ends up being the tech guy.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect that. Even when I first saw it, it's like, oh, he's a tech guy? All right, well, okay, I guess so. We all got, we all got to be something.
Yeah, he's the Don Cheadle of the operation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really see him do a lot. He's got his equipment, and he's doing some stuff, but then for the rest of the movie, he's like a straight up, normal gangster type.
Yeah.
Not particularly clever. Like, he knows how to hotwire a car and do stuff like that. He's trying to do that, and there's a scene where the kid just finds the keys.
Yeah, he's a criminal. It's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But they're waiting for him, to bring up this elevator, and they have this big shootout with these poor security guards, who, if the security guards had only realized it wasn't their movie, they'd have been fine. But they didn't realize that. They thought, oh, it's our movie. No, it wasn't, and they all got blown away. This movie did have one of the old tropes, as you could say, of token black guy gets killed first.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's not just that. One, they use that as a real
inciting incident.
Mm-hmm, and as a moment of seriousness after the getaway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not totally cartoonish with the violence. It kind of is to start, but by the time that happens, it really grounds everything, and then it throws the attitudes of all the criminals involved into pretty sharp contrast.
Most of them, I don't think, like Christian Slater's character, when they get back and there's the conflict about the money and what's going on, like, he seemed like he could just care less. Like, I'm just here doing a job with these guys.
Yeah.
And
he's like, my cut is a portion of what we got. Now that we have one less guy, my cut's a little bit larger. And Kevin Costner doesn't like that.
That's not the plan. I have a plan.
Which doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's like walking up to a vending machine and being like, oh.
You get two of them instead of one of them when you hit the button.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say it's like walking up and thinking it's like $1.50 when it's really $1, and you stick the $1.50 in anyway, and then you're upset that the machine keeps spitting it back out. Doesn't make any sense.
No.
Like, why wouldn't you just, it's the money part.
Yeah, I thought.
It's like, oh, my paycheck was a little bit higher than I expected it to be because this one day was time and a half and being upset because it's not part of your budget.
Yeah, he had the specific plan. Like you said, he was very, he was like Neo learning Kung Fu. He was a machine. He had to do it the certain way. Here's the plan. We split it into 5 bundles, and then we're gonna go to our cleaner guy.
Yeah, and we're gonna go together, which seemed to be news to everybody. They had everything else laid out. Howie Long picked him up in the helicopter, and then he was like, "No, I don't trust any of you. We're all going to the cleaners together."
I did like how when he comes to pick him up in the elevator, they got in the shootout. They come busting upstairs, out of the door, onto the roof, and he's not there. And they're like, "Oh shit!" But as he's flying in, he's just listening to some music. He's taking his time. He's like in no hurry. Like there's no communication. They don't have any radio contact or anything. He has no idea.
So for all the things we're kind of complaining about, there's not a lot that's really wrong with it. It's a pretty tight movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on. There are clear and defined acts in it.
Absolutely.
Because the first part focuses on establishing the characters and then the initial heist. The second part is sort of the betrayal in the beginning of this conflict between Mike and Murph.
Yeah, these are the two main characters. These are the ones that after the heist has gone on, Christian Slater's character kind of gets a little lippy. He wants to do what he wants to do, and Murph just shoots him. And we have to go take care of this body. But then apparently Murph's plan is different than everybody else's plan. Mm-hmm. Like it's still to go to the cleaner and to take care of it, but not with any of the other guys.
Yeah. He also didn't bury any of them.
No, he didn't. He grabs a shovel, like we're gonna bury him, like he needed to do that. And I don't even know why they showed that as a thing, except just to lead more into the idea that, all right, we're just gonna go bury this guy out in the desert.
Also, if he had buried Mike alive, like he would have noticed. Like, hey, this guy's breathing and not bleeding. But instead it was bam, bam, and then walk away.
Mm-hmm.
So that made a little bit more sense.
There's the situation with Courtney Cox and Kurt Russell's character. They are kind of an item. There's this little kid who belongs to Courtney Cox. He's kind of a up-and-coming criminal. Like, realistically, that's
sort of an aspiring one. Like, that's what he wants to do. It's what he wants to be. He's dishonest. His mom's kind of not a good mom. Like,
she doesn't care.
I didn't like it. The first time we were recording this, I pointed out that I had COVID, and I've been stuck at home. I've been playing video games and watching TV all the time, and I'm kind of tired of stuff that's like darker, because it just gets you down after being stuck inside with nothing to do but that. So I don't know if it's that or just how inherently screwed up that family dynamic is, but it just all felt like greasy and gross. Like the interactions between Courtney Cox and Kurt Russell in the beginning part of the movie, where they're in the diner and she's trying to make it up to him, I guess, that the kid had stolen his valve stem caps that are like little metal skulls, but he's buying for her, and she's telling him like, oh, it takes more than a cup of coffee to get a girl like me in the sack. Like that, straight into that. That's immediately how she's acting. Then it goes into these weird sex scenes where the kid's sneaking in, and I thought they were like in it together. I thought that was the plan, but apparently not. Like, apparently this just happens because the kid didn't look like, oh, what a surprising situation. I wonder if I can work this to my advantage. He was like, oh, mom's doing this again.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's one of these again.
Yeah, it's like, this is how I get all the stuff that I had up in the ceiling. It's kind of my game plan. It's why, I don't know.
I get it. Like if you're used to a home life that makes sense, and your mom's not a complete piece of garbage who bangs random, truck stop guys, basically, and might actually care if all of a sudden you had no money and wanted to buy this thing at the little shop the coffee shop where you're at, and you couldn't, and then that very next day you're wearing the cowboy outfit of the thing that you wanted to buy. I like to think most moms would be like, oh, excuse me, son, would you come here? What? How did you get that? She'd not even, or she just she knew what he did.
Yeah, a normal parent, if their kid pulled out a candy bar they hadn't bought for them, I mean, this kid was like 10, then they would immediately be like, where'd that come from? I didn't give you that. I didn't give you any money.
One thing that was nice about the kid, and for the most part, like we had said in our original review, the characters aren't helpless. Everybody has something to do, and they contribute something, whether to move the story forward. They're not just there to say a line, to be a MacGuffin that you need to get and take, or to rescue or whatever. They're there and they actually contribute things.
Yeah,
which is nice.
It's not even just a like, this is your thing, this is my thing. Kind of like I don't know, like an Ocean's 11 or I think it was called Leverage.
Heard of it, never saw it.
Yeah, it was. I think that's the show I'm thinking of, but it's the same sort of thing. There's like a boss who knows everybody's strength, and it's like, okay, you do this. This is your job in this particular episode.
Got you.
But yeah, it's not just that they all have a sort of two-dimensional function. They all feel like real people. They all have stuff that's going on. You know, Courtney Cox, she starts off feeling kind of sleazy and gross to me. But it turns into her genuinely having affection for Kurt Russell. And the kid and Kurt Russell, you know, Kurt Russell's like, get away from me, you little, like, you just steal my valve stem caps and now we're buds or something. And then you steal my money and your mom
is complicit.
Yeah, and makes it up to him.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge, say no more. Absolutely.
Yeah. She goes from being very sleazy to being like, no, we can all be together. We can be a family. You know, all I know about you is nothing. You're a criminal. You have a lot of money. I mean, other than that, I've spent the whole time either trying to get with you or get away from you, not really trying to get to know you at all. The only sort of glimmer of character development with her was
when she was locked in the trunk.
I was going to say her being jealous.
Oh,
of
okay,
that one
that
waitress.
makes more sense than that.
But then she uses the waitress and the fact that he's into the waitress to distract him so she can run away.
Yep, and steal his money.
Yeah, but it's still like there's something with her. There's something she's doing. You don't necessarily understand it, and it's not a consistent two-dimensional, like, I'm just this. And the kid, same thing. He's not just a little klepto the whole time. He's trying to become like in Cyberpunk. He wants to be a legend.
Absolutely,
right?
He does.
His goal is to be like known, and
he's got clever ideas. He is not helpless.
Yeah.
So that was nice. Two other characters who were in this movie that I really enjoyed were the U.S. Marshals who go after them. One played by Kevin Pollak and the other one played by Thomas Hayden Church. We have Dimitri and Quigley, and they're both great. I really liked them in this movie.
Yeah.
They weren't over the top, and they certainly weren't helpless morons just trying to figure out what's going on. They were just competent law enforcement officers who I like them as characters.
Yeah. Like in an Ocean's movie, the bad guy is the casino owner. In
Right.
this, the casino owner is just a casino owner.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not a bad guy. He's not the he's not the overall villain for the whole thing. He's not hunting them for the rest of the movie. The police are in this.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really seem to be much of a factor in the Ocean's movies. They're like a ticking clock, like, oh, we have this much time or something like that in most heist movies. But in this, again, the police are not either the ultimate villain or a complete non-factor. And they're also not completely incompetent, like you're saying.
Yeah.
So many movies, just they make it that way, you know? And I like that about it. They take it a little bit seriously. They make it feel a little bit real. If you've ever seen Layer Cake with Daniel Craig.
I have. It's been a long time. Been a long time.
Yeah, he starts it off, he's giving his whole little speech about like why he's in the field he's in and kind of introducing people through narration. And there's a point where there's a siren outside and everybody kind of looks nervous for a second. And he says, it's only the very stupid who think the law is stupid. Right?
Yeah, okay.
And it's a good perspective to have. Like their whole thing, through a lot of that movie, there's no, huge gunfights or anything like that. They're all very much like, okay, let's keep the police as far away from what we're doing as possible.
Yeah, like that's what smart criminals do.
Yeah.
They want to have as little interference. If you can't buy them off, you want as little to do with them as possible.
Yeah. And so at the end of this movie, it's really satisfying that the police, who've been effectively doing their job the whole time, Kurt Russell is clever enough to use the fact that they're competent to achieve his end goal.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I liked about this movie, and it's not super long, it's not super short, it's about 2 hours. It took the time for some character development. And there's a lot of movies, I think, today that lack that.
Mm-hmm.
that could use more of it. Like, I wouldn't mind going back to the days of Ben-Hur, Spartacus. Let's have an intermission. Hour and a half, take a break, get up, go whiz, go grab some more food, soda, whatever you want, come sit back down, finish your movie. Like, we get that now because there's a lot of home viewing with everything, the stupid virus. Like, we have that now because we can just pause and do whatever we want. That's why if theaters make it after all this and they're still as much of a thing as they were before, I will be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And I want that to be the case because I like going to the movies. But going to the movies for me isn't the same as it used to be. It's not as much of an experience because I get a pretty good experience just sitting in my living room. You get sound system, good TV. They're super cheap now if you want a really huge TV. It's not as it was. But one of the things, the character development in this movie, when the two break apart and Murph is doing his thing, trying to stick with his plan because that's what he does. Here's the plan. Go to the guy, get the money. That's still the plan. So he's still doing his thing, but there's things that happen on the road and you have things that happen with him that are very unique character moments. And they don't paint him in the light that makes him look like any less of a bad guy.
No, there's nothing redeemable about him at all. Which is, now that you bring that up, it's another thing that I like from older movies. When I'm saying older, not even that old, 10, 20 years old. You have a bad guy who's just a bad guy. They don't offer a lot of complexity. Like Thanos. Mm-hmm. Right? I think there's even a subreddit called Thanos Did Nothing Wrong.
Or I can imagine
there's definitely
there is
one that's The Empire Did Nothing Wrong. Where they argue like, well, from their perspective, they were doing what they thought was right. In this particular situation, there's nothing redeeming about Murph at all, which makes it, even with all the other intricacies, cleverness, bad decisions, whatever else they've got going on, at least it's easy to dislike the bad guy. Mm-hmm. There's no sympathy for him. Nobody, at least I hope nobody is seeing themselves in Kevin Costner's character.
That's probably pretty fair.
Yeah. But that's something that movies, I think, used to do a lot. They made the bad guy so bad that you had no choice but to root for the good guy. There's no sympathy at all. And this one does a good job of that. It's a movie that can be complex, and you can look at it from character development perspectives and cause and effect. There's a lot of things you can tear apart with this movie, too. What would have happened if Christian Slater hadn't had a problem with not changing the allocation of money, right? The whole reason Kevin Costner was able to kill everybody else was they had to go take care of that body.
Unless he had a plan to do it some other way. Like, as we're walking out the door, I'm going to make sure I'm last, pop, 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 drive my car, and I leave.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know what his plan was, but it just worked out really well for that to be the case. Maybe he knew, based on the personalities of people he put together, that if something happens, somebody's going to be a dick about it.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a full CinemaSins type thing and talk about that, because we had in our initial review that got erased for whatever reason. We talked about what happened to the Continental, because they started off to go to the heist in Murph's black convertible 60s Continental, whatever it was. And then when they come back, I believe they're in Kurt Russell's car. And then the incident that brings Courtney Cox and her son into the main part of the movie, not just the side characters, is where Mike needs her car. There's no other car.
The old Valiant. No, not her car. Her grandma's car.
Yeah. Murph steals his car, but Murph's car isn't anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. It never shows where it went, what happened, why there was no other car there. There were 5 guys involved with this thing. There were 2 cars. Now all of a sudden there's one. I mean, he hits a coyote or something like that, drives off the road, completely busts that thing up. But then it's perfect in the next scene. He's able to drive a rear-wheel drive, big block, 59 Cadillac out of a ditch when its wheels were clearly off the ground. That being said, there's not a lot in the movie that doesn't make sense. I mean, carrying the weapons out in the open didn't make a lot of sense. They were trying to blend in. They failed. But it doesn't feel like we're missing anything either. There's so much to this movie. There's so much going on. There's so many twists and turns. You know, there are moments where Mike is doubting that what he feels with Courtney Cox's character is real because Merv plants this idea in his head that, well, it was just him all along. You know, he made her do what she was doing so that she could get close to him and get the money away from him.
Right, that he was using her before
any of this
Mike
started.
even showed up. Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's really hard to convey how dumb some of the moments are, how clever some of the moments are, how good some of the action can be. You know, how real and lived in the world feels without really going like beat by beat in this movie, at which point you might as well have just watched it.
Yep. Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not doing beat by beat this time. There's
not enough that's like weird in this movie to go beat by beat. To be like, hey, then they do this and then this other thing makes no sense after it.
No, but for most of it, it just rolls smoothly, one thing into the next. What happens makes sense. The people who do the things make sense. Ice-T is in this movie, and he pulls this super special forces move that I've never seen before. You'll probably never see again.
Yep.
And when you see it, you're like, wow. But you're like, is that going to work? No.
Yeah. What was his game plan? How? Yeah.
Exactly what you expected to have happen if somebody pulled something like that is what happened.
Yeah.
Big shootout.
A move we have decided to name the Mandalier.
The big shootout at the end, police. It was fun. A lot of good just action, fun with this movie. A lot of stuff that I think we enjoyed. Most of the gripe things, you know, where the cargo, why would this small decision get made this way? You can overlook some of that stuff and just sit back and enjoy this movie. This is one that if you haven't seen it, haven't heard about it, and you have a chance, I think check it out. I think this is one both of us are going to recommend. And, you know, it's my favorite part still to the end of it is going to be Kevin Costner playing the bad guy. My favorite part about him, and this is something I like about bad guys, is I want my bad guy to be a bad guy. Like, I don't want him to have generally, some movies they do it well, where you're questioning what is really bad. Is it really bad? Is it not bad? The situation that you're forced into kind of thing. But no, if you're going to be a bad guy, you're going to be a criminal and be a bad guy. He was a bad guy.
Yeah, not even like the Joker. Like the Joker's a villain who he's doing bad stuff, but he's trying to make a point. You know, he knows what he's about.
Yep.
Kevin Costner knows what he's about too, but he's not trying to make a point. He's just doing shit because he feels like it.
Yeah.
He blows up that gas station and takes that girl just for grins.
Yep.
It's just to show what he's up to and how different they are. You know, Mike is the good guy.
While still being a criminal. He's a criminal. He's definitely a criminal.
Yeah, but Kevin Costner points out, like, you try to do the right thing in a bad situation. Like, that's you. You always try to do the right thing. So, he's killing people and blowing up gas stations. Mike is at a diner having lunch with this woman and her son and kind of bonding.
Yeah, I mean, he's checking out some waitresses. He's not, you know, a complete gentleman or anything.
Yeah, yeah. But he's also not a monster.
He's not a monster. You could easily say Merv. He's a monster.
Yep.
Like, he's straight up. He's a bad guy, which is great. I like my bad guys to be bad guys.
Yeah, I feel like I've gone back and forth a lot. Like, this was really smart. This was really bad. But it's the kind of movie you can watch and just, like you said, throw popcorn into your face and kind of switch your brain off a little bit. But there's a lot there. There's a lot there to enjoy. Like, it's a good, fun movie to watch and just relax for a little while. But there is a lot to it and a lot going on. And it doesn't, like, hurt. There are a lot of action movies now that are just churned out at an alarming rate that are just so bad Dialogue is so bad. Acting is so bad. Effects are so bad. Not naming names.
No, we're not. Not naming
this is
any
not
names of movies that we just reviewed last review. No, we're not naming anything.
Oh, no, that's not even what I was talking about. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of like the fights and stuff in this that make so much more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess we're already kind of at the end.
Is it? Yep.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So for me, I don't know where it's available. So I can't.
Like literally, that's why I said the
recommendation.
library.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's on any streaming service right now. It might be. You can check all the ones that you have.
Or if you're at Goodwill or like a yard sale and you see it on DVD, pick it up.
Maybe it'll be the Walmart in the $5 bin. Pick it up. It's worth it. It's easily worth $5, even if you watch it and throw it away. Like I don't care.
And that's what this is about. Finding that kind of movie, because I've had that happen so many times. I'll go to Walmart or wherever, and it's like a 3 for. It's a whole pack for $10. And it's like, well, I recognize one of these movies, and I liked it back in 1995 when it came out. So I'll pick this up. Oh, look at that. I like the other 2 as well, and I'd never heard of them.
Yeah, this is definitely one to watch if you have a chance to pick it up and watch it. And if you've already watched it and you have maybe a different opinion, you liked it, you didn't like it, hit us up. We got a couple different ways for you to do that.
Yep. We've got Twitter at MovieHell, and we have an email for those of you who are not into Twitter, which I totally get after this last year. And that's moviehell@gmail.com. We should mention the music. Very good in this movie.
I liked it. Liked a lot of it.
Yeah.
There's some Elvis music in it because of obviously the scene. And I really like the Elvis song that they used to start and then finish. There's something different in the middle, but the way they start it and finish that heist, it might be one of my favorite Elvis songs that he's ever done. I really like it.
It's very well done. It's clearly well thought out, almost in a Marvel sort of way. There are certain songs that they use in Marvel movies that like become a thing after that because it so perfectly suits the situation it's in. It's almost to that level. So one final gripe, since I just thought of it now that we're talking about Elvis.
Sure, gripe it up.
Don't be worried that this is an Elvis movie, but there's a subplot that they do not resolve where Kevin Costner might actually be
an illegitimate
child of Elvis. And there are 2. The police reveal that there were 2 people who
inconclusive.
When
they took the blood test, DNA test, whatever, that everybody but 2 came back inconclusive.
Yeah. Everybody else, like 70-something people came back, definitely not. 2, we're not sure. So I think we're supposed to assume that, one is definitely Kevin Costner, but the other, I'm guessing, is Mike. I don't know for sure, because they never really explain that. They also, Kevin Costner has this weird Elvis thing, which we're assuming is because it's his dad, but I don't know if that's supposed to play into his psychology and his last stand mentality.
That certainly throws a different take on it if somehow Mike and Murph could have been brothers. Half brothers. I hadn't even considered that.
But they never explore it. They just kind of drop it. It's like, oh, he was really into Elvis. You realize that right away. Really, really into Elvis.
Really into Elvis.
Like really not into Sinatra. But they never explore it. So anyway. That's about all it has to do with Elvis after the heist.
Really? They
like
do
this
throw
little
it in
scene
a
with
little
the
bit.
cops where they're like, "Hey, he might be." And then Howie Long at the end. Are you really his kid? And then Howie Long's just gone.
Yep. Yeah, this was a good one. I want to say thank you once again, Holligans, for listening to us rant and or rave about a particular movie. This one was good, and we do hope all of you have a chance to check it out.
Yep, it was fun.
All right. I'm Joe.
I'm Ryan.
And we're out.